and her claims that she's a big, tough Bronx girl. The fact of the matter is she grew up in Yorktown, she was on my track team, and everybody in our community knows this is just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the Chad Prather Show exclusive. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She might have lied about being from the Bronx and now New York. Well, they just hadn't elected a literal socialist to run the show in the city. You can't make this circus up, folks. I want to talk to it, make a couple of comparisons here. First of all, there's this article by Fox News. It says AOC's claimed Bronx identity called bold-faced lie by a former schoolmate turned New York assemblyman. Here's what the article says. Said this image of AOC as a tough Bronx native is being challenged by a New York lawmaker who revealed photos of her in his high school yearbook from Yorktown Heights, a suburb nearly an hour outside New York City. New York State GOP Assemblyman Matt Slater, now representing Yorktown, shared the images of a young Ocasio-Cortez earlier this week on X. In the post, Slater claimed he and rising Democrat star attended Yorktown High School at the same time when she was a freshman and he was a senior. He said, everybody in our community knows this is just a bold-faced lie. He said that on Fox and Friends First Friday morning. Said she grew up in Yorktown. She was on my track team. Yorktown's a small town outside of northern Westchester, nearly an hour away from the Bronx. Slater described it as a great suburban town with a touch of rural to it. Ocasio-Cortez graduated from the area's high school, whose mascot is a Cornhusker, in 2007. Now, the article goes on to say that while the congresswoman has spoken about her time in Westchester, her early years in the Bronx have become a vital part of her political brand. I mean, we've all seen AOC jumping around, pulling her ponytail out and doing all that kind of stuff and suddenly going into her little, antics that she's done and, her little hardcore Bronx accent that she tries to pull out. Slater said he was moved to release the yearbook photo online during Representative Ocasio-Cortez's latest public spat with President Donald Trump, in which she renewed her calls for impeachment over his decision to bypass Congress in authorizing U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The Congresswoman wrote, in part on X, I'm a Bronx girl. You should know that we can eat Queens boys for breakfast respectfully, she said, referring to the president's upbringing in Queens. I saw the attacks on the president and her claims that she's a big, tough Bronx girl, said Slater. To sit there and say that she's a Bronx girl is just patently ridiculous. All right. AOC, the claim of the article is that a former schoolmate of AOC, Slater, who is a New York State Assemblyman, he said it's her attending Bronx science. That's inaccurate.
Online feud between AOC and President Trump, bringing her alleged Bronx girl roots into question. The president ripping into the Democrat for the rise in crime and poverty in her district after she called for his impeachment over the U.S. strikes on Iran. The congresswoman responding to Trump, posting, quote, Mr. President, don't take your anger out on me. I'm just a silly girl. Also, I'm a Bronx girl. You should know that we eat Queens boys for breakfast, respectfully. The president grew up in Queens. But a New York Assemblyman was quick to call her out, writing, if you're a Bronx girl, then why are you in my Yorktown yearbook? Give it up already. Joining us now is that GOP Assemblyman Matt Slater. Assemblyman, good morning to you. So apparently your high school produced a lot of lawmakers and on different sides of the aisle.
We did.
So what do you think about AOC's Bronx girl claims?
Well, I just think it's a bold-faced lie. And I saw the attacks on the president and her claims that she's a big, tough Bronx girl. The fact of the matter is she grew up in Yorktown, she was on my track team, and everybody in our community knows this is just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, so she was born in the Bronx, then when she was very young, moved to Yorktown for, she has said, better schools, and then she moved back to the Bronx when she was post-college, I believe. So should this matter to her constituents?
Well, I think when you look at how they manufacture candidates, the Democratic Party, it absolutely should, because she's lying about her background, she's lying about her upbringing, and the fact of the matter is that there's an authenticity problem with the Democratic Party. And if you look at AOC, if you look at Gavin Newsom, you look at Tim Walz, they do not connect with their voters if they actually know the truth about them. And so this is just part of the big lie that they continue to peddle just to make sure that they win elections.
What is Yorktown like? Is it anything like the Bronx?
Nothing whatsoever. I know exactly what neighborhood AOC grew up in. I was a supervisor there for 3 years, and I can tell you that it is nothing like the Bronx.
Yes, but a little bit up north, right?
Correct. We're about 40 minutes north of the Bronx.
Kind of rural or at least historic.
Great suburban town, touch of rural to it, absolutely. And
I was looking
roots.
at pictures. It looks beautiful. What was she like in high school?
You know, we were on the same track team. I was a senior. She was a freshman. Our paths didn't cross too much. But, you know, again, the fact of the matter is she grew up in Yorktown. She's a product of Yorktown. To sit there and say that she's a Bronx girl is just patently ridiculous.
I mean, the guy even said that she crashed with a friend in the Bronx to make it look like she lived there, but she was educated, raised, and formed in upper middle class suburbia. Where have we seen this before? Sort of like Jasmine Crockett? Yeah, kind of seems familiar, this story, how this person does not have the background they claim to have. They don't have the street cred. You can't go with the slang. It doesn't fit. And no matter how many times you try to push your ebonics and your street language out there, it just doesn't back up with where you're from. So in other words, AOC potentially built her political empire on a narrative that never happened. Now let's be clear. This is not a minor mistake in a campaign ad. This is the entire foundation of AOC's brand. And before you start thinking she's incompetent or irrelevant and no one cares about that stupid mule-faced woman, let me remind you that the Green New Deal, which looked like something that a seventh grader drew up with a crayon and rolled out at the name of $93 trillion in infrastructure on the part of America, we laughed it off, but it's still even a part of the big, beautiful bill that they're trying to pass right now. They haven't gotten rid of that Green New Deal crap yet, and it's all the AOC. Now, she's not just claiming to represent the Bronx, she's weaponized. She used that identity to attack capitalism, to attack the police, law enforcement, border security, the private sector, the very Constitution that protects the freedom he abuses on a daily freaking basis. And now it turns out she might have been LARPing. You know that term, right? Live action role playing, yeah. Yeah, she's a Bronx bodega while really sipping ice water lattes or ice lattes in Westchester. Folks, this is like finding out Rocky never boxed, that Eminem was from Beverly Hills and Rosa Parks was actually uber black, okay? This is ridiculous, if this is true. And I'm so sick of politicians lying about who they are, where they come from, what their qualifications are, and they come out there and they're going to condescend to you, the American person, the American citizen, the taxpayer, and try to make you think that you... I must be dumb or something. If this is true, I think this needs to come out, because just when you think it can't get any dumber, I mean, look what New York's already up to. Not only did they play AOC, they've upped the ante and elect a liberal Marxist with Zohran Mamdani. City where AOC may have fabricated a rags to revolution story, the voters just handed a Democratic Socialist a victory because of AOC's endorsement along with Bernie Sanders. Why would you trust her endorsement if she's lied about where she's from? We need to know. Because this is not just any socialist. Mamdani's a hard left ideologue who doesn't even pretend to like capitalism. You remember that scene in every horror movie where the villagers ignore all the warning signs? That's New York City right now. And we got a city being destroyed by crime, housing collapse, mass illegal migration, tax insanity. And what do the voters do? They vote in a guy who thinks Cuba had the right idea and that landlords are the enemy of the state. Now, look. I don't care if you're left, right, upside down. When your elected leaders are openly calling for the dismantling of capitalism and private property, it's time to hit the brakes. But in New York, they just floored the gas, strapped on a Che Guevara t-shirt and said, let's ride. And so now you got two flavors of socialism coming out of the Big Apple. AOC, the fake from the Bronx, champagne socialist, pretends to be poor while wearing $3,000 outfits and pretending she can't afford a house in D.C. Somehow on a $174,000 a year congresswoman's salary, she's worth $26 million. But then you got Zohran Mamdani, the real deal Marxist who wants to tax the rich, punish the landlords, destroy charter schools, and use the government like a sledgehammer to remake society in his little red image. And what do they have in common? Both want to burn the American system down. One just uses Instagram filters. The other one uses Karl Marx quotes. And here's the scariest part. They're winning. They're winning. They're not only socialists. They're not only liars. They're not only anti-American. They're winning. Not because their ideas are good, not because their policies work, but because they know how to manipulate stories, emotions, and fear. AOC weaponized her allegedly fake Bronx identity to create a movement. Mamdani uses language like liberation and solidarity to sell dictatorship light, because it's not about facts. Obviously, if you're faking your background, it's not about facts. It's all about feelings. It's not about do we feel like she's doing a good job? Well, the answer to that is no. Because for them, it's not about fixing anything. It's about controlling everything. And you want to talk about implications. If AOC lied about her past and Mamdani openly campaigns on destroying capitalism, New York City isn't just losing its mind, it's surrendering soul. And they don't have much soul left to surrender because they're handing power to people who don't love this country, who don't respect hard work, who don't believe in merit or even truth, much less law and order. They're believing in ideology over integrity and narrative over honesty. It's control over liberty. And if we keep electing people who fake their past or who want to rewrite your future, then America we know and love won't just fade away. It'll be replaced by something absolutely unrecognizable. And it's going to be a place where your freedoms are rationed, where your paycheck is someone else's property, where the government picks winners and losers, where lies are called lived experience, and truth is punished as hate. This is what happens when you elect storytellers instead of leaders, performers instead of patriots, revolutionaries instead of representatives. Now, AOC might not be from the Bronx. We don't know. We'll find out. Time to tell. Hopefully, they'll dig the truth up. Mamdani might wish he was in Havana, but neither one belongs in the halls of American government. They don't, yet here they are. Here they are because of brain-dead first-time voters out there believing in campaign slogans that are full of shit. So what do? We expose the lies. Let's start with her background. Let's find out, where is AOC from? She built and fabricate a fake background in order to gain power. You got to call out that insanity. You got to fight back. You got to have boldness. You got to have truth. You can't let up. You got to be like a bulldog on a bleeding chicken. You got to take that common sense and use it, folks, because if we don't, the socialist cosplay becomes law and accent becomes legislation. The fake tears become trillion-dollar bills in debt. And America, she doesn't die with a bang. She dies with an Instagram post and a hammer and a sickle hashtag. So wake up, folks. It's not just about New York. It's about the soul of this country. And the next time someone tells you their story, ask them one simple question. Is it true? Because if it's not, we don't need more actors in Congress. We need good, red-blooded, honest Americans, people that have integrity and who care about the authority, the delegated place that they've been put in halls of Congress and in leadership over this great country. Let's pay attention to this one, folks. It doesn't need to go away. I love you. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.